Hey there, I'm Maz, and welcome to Maz Show. This is your space to explore big ideas through books, society, knowledge, and history, all with one goal to build a better world and a brighter future. If you are curious, reflective, and ready to grow, you're in the right place. So tap follow, hit subscribe, and let's get thinking.
Today, we're going to kick things off in a place that feels, well, incredibly remote at first glance. Think high in the Andes Mountains, South America, back in the 16th century.
Yeah.
It was there, deep inside this mountain, the Spanish later called Cerro Rico Rich Mountain, that they found the purest silver anyone had ever seen. And the really amazing part is how this one discovery, seemingly out of nowhere, ended up sparking the first truly global trade network. It's quite a story.
It really is.
The surprising, often profound, and sometimes, frankly, tumultuous history of how silver, especially from the New World, completely changed China.
Oh, by changing China, it changed the whole world.
Yeah.
Over what, the last 400 years or so?
Exactly.
We often think of globalization as, a recent thing or maybe something driven by Europe centuries ago.
Right, the age of exploration and all that.
But the real twist, the actual catalyst over 400 years ago was China. Specifically, China's internal economic policies and this, insatiable demand for silver. It wasn't about them wanting to conquer the world. It was about their own internal needs sparking this global connection.
That's a fascinating point. So to really get it, let's set the scene. China, early 16th century. The Ming Dynasty is at the peak of its power.
Absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
Ruling a quarter of the world's population from the Forbidden City. Immense scale.
And since Marco Polo, the West had been kind of dazzled by China, its sophistication, how advanced it seemed, Beijing's grandeur compared to, say, London or Paris back then.
Oh, no comparison. And the Chinese themselves, they genuinely saw themselves as the Middle Kingdom, the center of the universe, really.
There's that famous map, isn't there? The map of the myriad countries of the world.
That's the one. Puts China right smack in the middle. They were bigger, richer than any European state. For a long time, that view wasn't really challenged.
But even with all that power, the Ming emperors had this hidden vulnerability, their tax system.
Oh, it was a mess. Incredibly inefficient, complex, based on people providing labor or paying in goods, rice, silk, cotton.
I mean, just imagine trying to manage that. Shipping tons of grain. How do you even judge the quality of silk consistently across a huge empire?
Exactly. A bureaucratic nightmare. Plus, they tried paper money before, going way back, but they kept overissuing it.
So people didn't trust it, became worthless.
Right. So the most reliable thing was still the humble copper coin. But copper coins are heavy, really heavy. A guan, which was like 1,000 coins, but just impractical for large payments.
So people naturally started using silver for bigger deals because it was lighter, more valuable.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It just made sense. And this shift didn't go unnoticed by everyone in power.
Okay, so who spotted the problem?
Well, by the 1570s, you have this really influential figure, Zhang Zhudang. He was the senior grand secretary, a top official.
Right.
And he saw that the country had serious financial problems. Not enough tax revenue coming in. The system was creaking.
And he came up with a pretty radical solution for the time.
Hugely bold. In 1580, he pushed through the single whip reform. Basically, he scrapped all those fiddly labor services and payments in kind.
And replaced them with?
One single payment in silver. Made collections so much simpler for the government.
You can actually see artifacts showing this change in the National Museum of China, right?
Yeah, tangible evidence of this massive shift.
So let's unpack this single whip reform. Suddenly, you've got over 100 million people needing silver to pay their taxes. What does that do? I mean, where does all that silver come from if China itself didn't have much?
That is the absolute crux of it. This purely internal policy decision forces China, which had always been pretty self-sufficient, pretty inward-looking.
To suddenly rely on the outside world.
Exactly. They were now at the mercy of foreign trade. Their own needs created this huge global demand signal. They tried Japan first for silver, but Japanese mines just couldn't keep up. The demand was enormous.
And just as China creates this massive demand, bingo, 36 years before the single whip reform, way back in 1545, the Spanish stumble upon Potosi.
Incredible timing, wasn't it?
This remote place, 4,000 meters up in modern-day Bolivia. The legend involves a lost llama, right? Leading to Cerro Rico, this mountain literally made of the purest silver.
And the output was just staggering. For the 16th and 17th centuries, estimates are like half of all the silver mined in the entire world came from Potosi.
Mind-blowing. But it came at an absolutely horrific human cost for the Spanish.
Oh, terrible. They enslaved the local indigenous people, disease, warfare wiped out huge numbers, so then they brought in African slaves.
The mountain that eats men, they called it.
Yeah. There's that horrifying quote, "You could build a bridge from Potosi to Madrid from what was mined here, and one back with the bones of those that died taking it out."
Chilling. Just shows the brutality behind this global economic engine. So the Spanish have all this silver mined under horrendous conditions, but now they need someone to sell it to.
Right. They've got a supply, but where's the demand? Not so much in Europe, actually.
So they looked across the Pacific.
Yep. 12,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
To the Philippines, which they'd recently colonized and named after their king, Philip II. And this is where it all clicks together.
Manila.
Manila becomes their capital. And they find Chinese trading ships, junks, already there, doing regional trade.
So the Chinese were already active in the area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And once the Spanish set up shop, thousands more Chinese traders flooded in, selling luxury goods the Spanish wanted, gorgeous silks from Nanjing, porcelain from Jingdezhen.
But the key thing was, what did the Chinese want in return?
Only one thing, silver. The Viceroy of New Spain wrote back to the king around 1570, basically saying, look, China has everything. The only way to trade with them is silver.
And that became the Silver Way, this trade route fueling China's economy, its manufacturing.
It really did. And in 1573, they opened a mint right there in Potosi, started churning out the famous Spanish silver dollar, the piece of 8.
The first truly global currency.
You could say that, yeah. And Manila just exploded. The number of Chinese junks arriving went up like 1,000% in less than a decade.
Wow. And they needed special ships for this massive trans-Pacific trade, right? The Manila galleons.
These things were incredible. Huge ships, up to 2,000 tons. Typical ships then were maybe 200 tons, made of tough tropical hardwoods, almost indestructible.
The container ships of their day.
Pretty much. Sailing 9,000 miles back and forth, Acapulco to Manila twice a year, loaded with silver going west, Chinese goods going east.
And all this silver pouring out, demanded by China, it allowed Spain to build this colossal empire.
The empire on which the sun never sets. It funded their golden age architecture.
But also perpetual war.
Exactly. Against the British Armada, the Ottomans, the Dutch. All funded by silver for a country of only, 6 million people? Amazing power projection.
But this concentration of trade in Manila, it also led to the first Chinatown, didn't it? Binondo.
Supposedly the oldest, yeah.
Yeah.
The Chinese became the traders, the middlemen, the craftsmen for the Spanish, making huge profits. But it wasn't exactly harmonious.
No. What were the tensions?
Well, there was this love-hate thing going on. The Spanish initially kind of wanted to conquer China from Manila like they did Mexico.
That obviously didn't happen.
Right, so they focused on trade. But they were massively outnumbered by the Chinese in Manila. Fear, suspicion. It boiled over in 1603.
A rebellion.
A huge Chinese rebellion against the Spanish.
Yeah.
Brutally put down. Over 20,000 people killed. Severed heads displayed as a warning. Grim stuff.
Jeez. But even after that violence, the Chinese population didn't just disappear?
Nope. The lure of the silver trade was just too strong. And the Spanish, frankly, needed them. The whole system depended on the Chinese traders and craftsmen.
So for over 50 years, the silver flow kept the Ming dynasty humming along, prospering. But then, paradoxically, the very thing that fueled their success became a cause of their downfall. How did that happen?
It's a fascinating turn. The Ming were already facing other problems. Expensive military campaigns, trouble collecting taxes from people who were suffering.
Right.
But they needed a lot of silver to keep the economy running, maybe 50 tons a year on average in the 17th century. And here's the key. When that supply got choked off.
How? What happened?
In the late 1630s, several of those crucial Manila galleons sank, one after another. Bad luck, storms, who knows. But the silver stopped coming.
And that caused ripples all the way back in China.
Massive ripples. It was maybe the first real example of a financial shock in one part of the world, shipwrecks in the Pacific, having a truly global reach and causing a money supply shock in China. Economic catastrophe followed.
So the emperor, Chongzhen, he suddenly couldn't pay his bill.
Couldn't pay his troops. Facing rebels, enemies on the northern border, discontent soared. And in 1644, Beijing fell after 276 years of Ming rule.
And Chongzhen.
He walked up a small hill overlooking the Forbidden City and hanged himself. Utter despair. The silver that built his empire helped bring it down. Astonishing.
Wow. So the Ming are gone. Who takes over?
The Qing dynasty. These were Manchurian warriors from the north. They spent the next 40 years basically consolidating power, putting down Ming loyalists a pretty turbulent time.
And during that time, trade was shut down.
Yeah, maritime trade was banned for 40 years. China was effectively closed off again. So the new emperor, Kangxi, once things settled down, he had a big decision. Keep the doors closed or open China back up.
And he chose to open up.
He did. In 1684, he issued this famous edict. Go abroad and trade, he told his people, to show the populous and affluent nature of our rule.
So the silver starts flowing again?
It does. Kangxi was smart. He set up customs houses at 4 main ports, Canton or Guangzhou, as we know. It was the really key one. Silver poured directly into his treasury, and it kicked off this long period of peace and, well, pretty amazing prosperity for China.
And Canton became the focal point.
Absolutely. Its location on the Pearl River estuary made it perfect. Foreign ships flooded in British, Dutch, French, Danish, Swedish, all loaded with silver.
There's that amazing wallpaper, right, showing Canton Harbor?
Yeah, 18 panels of it shows the river just jam-packed with boats. You'd barely see the water. It was booming. And China taxed everything coming in, boosting the emperor's wealth.
Initially, they came for silk and porcelain, the usual suspects. But then, in the 1700s, something else took off.
Tea, a product only China had, treasured there for ages. But suddenly Europe went mad for it.
It became huge, really fast, almost like an addiction, wasn't it? Guaranteed repeat business.
Totally. Catherine of Braganza, Charles II's wife, helped make it fashionable in London. And once the royals liked it...
Everyone wanted it.
Exactly. The tea trade became gigantic, filling whole ships. It even went overland. The tea road thousands of miles to Russia.
Trading tea and luxuries for Russian furs. And silver, of course.
Always silver. And the wealth from this tea trade, it helped build St. Petersburg's grand buildings. And inside China, it transformed the country. The population doubled, then nearly tripled by the mid-18th century. Unprecedented growth.
All that growth needed resources, though. Timber for houses, palaces.
Right, which pushed merchants deeper into the interior, affecting communities like the Miao people. Interestingly, they didn't use silver much as money.
What did they use it for?
Jewelry. Absolutely stunning, intricate silver jewelry became a status symbol, a craft that still exists today.
So China's getting wealthier, trade is booming, but did all this foreign contact and focus on trade start to change Chinese society itself?
That's a really good question. Some historians argue yes, that this period saw the rise of a more material mindset, a focus on only make money, as one source puts it, a subtle shift driven by the economic boom.
Interesting. So immense wealth flowing in, but also these foreigners becoming a regular fixture in ports like Canton, and not always well-behaved.
Not always, no. By the mid-18th century, the new emperor, Qianlong, he's got a problem. These Western merchants are seen as quarrelsome, rowdy, and drunk. Constant disputes, complaints. Officials started calling them uncouth barbarians.
So Qianlong decided to tighten the reins.
Drastically. In 1757, he shut down almost the entire coast to Western trade. Only one port remained open, Canton. And even there, he restricted them.
How?
Using the Pearl River. At a narrow point called the Boca Tigris, the Tiger's Mouth ships could go no further. Foreigners were confined to a tiny strip outside Canton's walls, in buildings called factories.
Not actual factories, though.
No, more like residences and warehouses. Western style, but fundamentally Chinese. That little strip of land was literally all of China a Westerner could ever see.
Must have been suffocating. A golden ghetto, it's been called. Forbidden to learn Chinese, no women allowed, discouraged from mixing. How did they even operate?
Well, they found ways to amuse themselves, parties, pleasure boats. But the biggest restriction, commercially, was the Kohong.
The Kohong.
A small group, maybe 8 to 12 powerful Chinese merchants. Westerners had to trade through them. They were the official gatekeepers to the rest of China.
And the ones most frustrated by this were?
The British East India Company. Hugely powerful, rich, basically acted like its own country with its own army and navy, a monopoly clashing with a Chinese monopoly. And their guys were always looking to make a fortune.
Which leads us to James Flint in 1759. He tried to bypass the system.
He did. Sailed north, tried to petition the emperor directly about unfair trade terms, corruption. A very bold move.
How did Qianlong react to that?
Not well. Initially, he investigated Flint's claims, but then came the hammer. Officials in Canton were sacked. 2 Chinese who helped Flint executed. Flint himself got 3 years in prison, then banished forever.
Wow, so that sent a clear message.
Absolutely. Qianlong used it to lay down the law, issued his regulations against the barbarians in 1760, basically saying, these are China's rules for global trade. Take it or leave it. China was calling the shots.
And culturally, China was still hugely influential in Europe then?
Oh, massively. Chinoiserie, that fanciful Chinese style, was all the rage. European royals were obsessed. Catherine the Great in Russia even built a whole Chinese village near St. Petersburg.
And didn't she receive an amazing Chinese silver tea set?
Extraordinary piece. Housed in the Hermitage now. 32 pieces, incredible filigree work, pomegranates, dragons, hundreds of diamonds. A symbol of China's craftsmanship and prestige.
So end of the 18th century, China's seemingly on top of the world. Middle Kingdom, economic powerhouse, Qing dynasty looks solid.
Yeah, from the outside they looked unshakable.
But for Britain, there's a growing problem, isn't there? This trade, while profitable, is massively unbalanced.
Totally. The British are buying tons and tons of tea. But the Chinese still don't want much British stuff in return. So silver, huge amounts of it, is just pouring out of Britain and into China. A massive trade deficit.
Which the British East India Company wasn't happy about, so they persuaded the government to send a major delegation.
Right. Lord Macartney's mission in 1792? A huge affair. 700 people, soldiers, scientists, musicians, fancy gifts like a planetarium.
What were they hoping to achieve?
Clear goals. Get better trade terms, secure a proper trading base, maybe a small island, for their merchants, and crucially establish a permanent British embassy in Beijing.
And they were optimistic. Britain was industrializing, its power growing.
They thought they were equals now,
Yeah.
ready to negotiate peer-to-peer.
But when Macartney finally gets to China, meets Emperor Qianlong, things don't go to plan. There's the whole kowtow incident.
Yeah, the clash over protocol. Macartney refused to perform the full kowtow, the 9 head knocks on the floor.
Okay.
He just went down on one knee, like for his own king. He's got a bad tone.
And Qianlong's reply to King George III's request was famously blunt.
Completely dismissive. Basically said, we have everything we need, we don't need your products.
Yeah,
Total rejection of all British proposals.
a complete and utter failure for Macartney.
Absolutely. And Qianlong didn't stop there. He warned the British king against trying to trade anywhere else but Cantoner. And then, cleverly, he arranged for King troops to parade along Macartney's road back south.
A show of force.
Definitely. It shows Qianlong wasn't naive. He saw the British were backed by power. He understood they were shrewd operators. He was flexing China's muscles to maintain control without provoking an immediate fight.
So Macartney goes home, embarrassed, and the British view of China shifts.
Dramatically. From admiration, Sandophilia, to looking down on China. Macartney himself called it an old warship heading for scrap.
But despite the snub, Britain couldn't just walk away from the trade.
No way. Too much money was still being made in Canton. They had to swallow their pride and accept China's terms.
And Canton entered its golden age, the absolute center of global trade.
One of the wealthiest, most cosmopolitan cities anywhere. A real workshop of the world. Thousands of craftsmen, churning out goods specifically for the foreign market. Porcelain, furniture, silver spoons that undercut Western makers.
All while the Western merchants are still cooped up in their little riverside enclave, the 13 factories.
Still making fortunes, though. And at the very top of the Chinese side of this trade was Haokua.
The chief Hong merchant, reputedly the richest man in the world at the time.
Quite possibly. Worth maybe over $1 billion in today's money. Made mostly from selling vast amounts of tea to the British East India Company. Reliable, massive profits.
And he was smart with his money, wasn't he? Didn't just sit on it.
Very shrewd. He started lending money, even to the East India Company. But he worried about officials seizing his silver in Canton, so he invested abroad.
Particularly in America.
Yes, he saw the newly independent U.S. as a way to diversify, to build connections beyond just the British.
And he backed some significant figures, like Warren Delano.
FDR's great-great-grandfather, yeah. Delano made his fortune in the China trade, partly through Haokua's connections. That money helped build railroads, factories, coal mines back in the U.S., funded a chunk of America's Industrial Revolution.
Wow. And Haokua was highly respected by the Americans.
Immensely. Known for his honor. He'd occasionally host these lavish banquets, 15 courses, bird's nest soup, shark fins, even waltzing, apparently.
Amazing. But even the Americans faced the same old problem. What could they sell to the Chinese? Still nothing they really wanted.
Except silver. It always came back to silver.
Which leads us to the dark turn, the solution they found.
Opium. A truly devastating choice. It wrecked the Chinese economy, society, millions of lives. Great for foreign traders' profits, though.
Awful. Imports just skyrocketed, didn't they? Even though it was officially banned in China.
Went from maybe 1,000 tests a year in the 1760s to 40,000 by the 1830s. It was everywhere used by officials, scholars, laborers, a massive addiction crisis.
And the main suppliers were the British, growing it in India.
Mostly, yes. Figures like Jardine and Matheson built huge fortunes by basically smuggling it systematically, using fast clipper ships, selling it offshore all along the coast. They saw themselves as legitimate traders, not criminals.
Americans are involved too, though.
Some were, yes, sourcing opium from Turkey. By the 1830s, it was a full-blown crisis. Millions addicted, silver pouring out of China now to pay for the drug.
So the emperor finally decided enough was enough?
The Emperor de Buang, yes. In 1839, he sent his top anti-corruption official, Commissioner Lin Zexu, down to Canton.
And Lin didn't mess around.
Not at all. Swift, ruthless. Demanded all opium be handed over. Arrested Chinese dealers, confiscated tens of thousands of pipes, put all the foreign merchants under house arrest, no servants, had to learn to cook. Hao Kuai himself was under intense pressure, facing possible execution.
There's that candid letter from the American trader Robert Bennett Forbes, admitting he made his fortune from opium but felt no moral indignation.
Quite revealing, isn't it? The climax came when the British finally surrendered 20,000 chests of opium.
Which Lin then publicly destroyed.
Mixed it with lime and salt water, flushed it into the Pearl River. Millions of pounds worth up in smoke, or rather down the drain. He even said a prayer for the fish. Then wrote that famous letter to Queen Victoria telling her to stop the poison trade. He genuinely thought she'd listen.
But the British reaction was predictable.
Fury. Demands for compensation. Refusal was seen as an insult to the nation. Jardine and Matheson lobbied hard back in London. Lord Palmerston said, "Let us give China a good thrashing."
And explain ourselves afterwards. So war was inevitable.
Pretty much. By 1840, the British fleet arrived. China thought its defenses were strong. They were tragically wrong.
Because Britain had industrialized, steam power, better guns.
A total quantum leap in military tech. Steam gunboats like the Nemesis just ran rings around traditional Chinese war junks. A complete mismatch. Chinese ports were hammered.
China lost badly, forced to sign the Treaty of Nanking in 1842.
Which basically dictated terms. It marked the end of China calling the shots. From now on, Britain was in charge.
And the terms were harsh. More ports opened, residence rights for Brits, and Hong Kong.
Ceded to Britain in perpetuity. Palmerston initially called it a barren lump of rock, but the merchants knew its value as a free trade base. This treaty, Nanking, it's seen as the start of China's century of humiliation.
Losing control, forced to comply through violence, Canton's golden age over. Hao Kuai died soon after, his fortune gone. It really was a clash of worlds.
Absolutely. Traditional China versus industrial imperial Britain.
But even after winning the war and getting new ports, British sales in China still didn't really take off.
Nope. Still not buying enough British goods. So the British wanted more. More ports, access up the Yangtze River. They were basically looking for an excuse for round two.
And they found one in 1856, some incident with a ship in Canton.
Exactly. Chinese officials boarded a British-registered ship, accused the crew of piracy. That was the pretext.
And this time other Western powers joined in.
Oh, yeah. The French, Russians, Americans, everyone wanted a piece of the action, a slice of China.
Leading to the capture of Beijing in 1860 and the destruction of the Summer Palace.
A truly shocking act. Deliberate cultural vandalism. After looting it, the British commander, Lord Elgin, ordered it burned to the ground. Took 3 days.
Why? Just wanton destruction.
It was calculated punishment. Designed specifically to humiliate the king court, to show them their civilization could be wiped out just like that.
More devastating consequences followed. Huge war payments again.
Another 10 million silver taels on top of the first war's payments. More than half China's annual revenue gone. Opium trade fully legalized. 11 more ports opened up deep into the interior.
And negotiating this disaster fell to Prince Gong, the emperor's younger brother.
Yeah, he was only 27. Seen as more modern, more pragmatic. He basically had to accept defeat and recognize China was now in a race to catch up, a race that would last through the 20th century.
So Prince Gong tries to turn things around, the self-strengthening movement.
He did. Focused on modernizing China's defenses, Western weapons, new navy, mines, steamships, trying to learn from the defeats.
How did they pay for all this?
Largely through a really unusual organization, the Imperial Maritime Customs Service. Run by foreigners, mostly British, but working for the Chinese government, collecting tariffs efficiently.
And led by Robert Hart, that Irishman.
Brilliant administrator. Had real empathy for China, insisted his staff learn Chinese. Under him, the customs service became incredibly effective.
What did it achieve?
Uniform tariffs across China for the first time. Modern ports, lighthouses, a college for translators, even built customs houses way out in Central Asia and Tibet, marking Qing territory.
And financially?
Hugely significant. Revenues soared. By the 1890s, it provided a fifth of all government income. Reliable, non-corrupt, it was the financial bedrock. Silver started flowing back into China again through increased trade.
So some progress. But China was still struggling, still falling behind.
Yes, several problems. Sticking to silver when the rest of the world was moving to gold made them seem backward. And then there was Empress Dowager Cixi.
The powerful conservative empress.
Deeply resistant to change. Ruthless. Persecuted reformers. Spent money on palaces instead of the military. Undermined Prince Gong's efforts at every turn.
Meanwhile, across the sea, Japan was doing the opposite.
Exactly. The Meiji Restoration, one of the fastest, most complete modernizations ever seen. Army, Navy, government, education, all transformed in just a couple of decades. Japan became a major power itself.
Leading to the Sino-Japanese War in 1895.
And China's supposedly modernized navy was crushed. A humiliating defeat by their smaller neighbor, who they used to look down on.
Consequences.
Even more territory lost: Korea, Taiwan, and a massive indemnity payment to Japan. 200 million silver taels. So huge, it actually helped Japan move on to the gold standard.
Crippling for China. How did they even pay it?
They couldn't. Had to borrow heavily from foreign banks. HSBC became massive, partly because of these loans. China was falling deeper into debt and foreign influence.
And things got even worse with the Boxer Rebellion in 1900.
This anti-foreign movement, the Boxers, believed they were immune to bullets. Revive the king, destroy the foreign. Empress Cixi, hostile to foreigners herself, actually backed them. Declared war on all foreign powers.
Which went about as well as you'd expect.
Crushed in 2 months by an alliance of 8 nations. Beijing occupied again. And the punishment, another indemnity.
Even bigger this time.
A lossel, 450 million silver taels. Supposedly 1 tael for every person in China, equivalent to maybe $300 billion today. People feared China would be carved up like Africa, cease to exist as a nation.
But it wasn't. How did they avoid partition?
Ironically, Robert Hart, the head of the Customs Service, played a key role. He argued to the foreign powers that a functioning China, even a weakened one, was the only way they'd ever get their indemnity money paid back.
Clever.
He structured it as a single huge bond linking the Qing government's survival to the foreign powers getting their cash. But the cost was huge. Almost all state revenues were now under foreign control, managed by the Customs Service, banked by HSBC.
So the final picture for the king.
Utterly subordinate. From dominating maybe 30% of world GDP in the 1850s to just 6% by 1900. Living standards collapsed. Last-ditch reforms failed. Faith in the dynasty evaporated. And in 1911, the revolution came. The emperor was overthrown. End of imperial China.
And again, silver played a role in the dynasty's fall, just like with the Ming.
Absolutely. From foundation to fatal weakness.
After the revolution, China descends into chaos. Warlords, civil war.
Total turmoil. Provinces run by warlords, taxes impossible to collect, currency was a mess, loads of different local silver coins. Totally confusing.
But one city bucked the trend. Shanghai.
Shanghai became this weird haven because large parts of it were under foreign control. The international settlement, the French concession, Western law provided stability.
So business thrived there, became the Paris of the East.
Absolutely. Skyscrapers, jazz clubs, booming trade, finance, cosmopolitan, modern, even making fancy silver cocktail shakers. And crucially, the maritime customs was still functioning there, collecting nearly 90% of what little government revenue there was, all banked with HSBC.
Then, in 1933, the finance minister of the new republic, TV Soong, tries to finally fix the currency mess.
Yeah, TV Soong, from that powerful Soong family. He proposed abolishing the old silver tael system completely, replacing it with one single standard minted silver dollar coin featuring Sun Yat-sen.
A huge change after centuries. Was there resistance?
Oh yeah, from traditional bankers who profited from the old complex system. But Soong had the backing of the modern banks and pushed it through. The tael was gone. China finally had a unified silver dollar. He was hailed internationally as a financial genius.
So, a success. But just 2 years later, China abandoned silver altogether. What happened?
The Great Depression, weirdly. Initially, because silver lost value against gold-backed currencies, Chinese exports got cheaper, which was good for them.
Okay.
But then the U.S., under pressure from its own silver mining states, passed the Silver Purchase Act. This forced the global price of silver up dramatically.
And for China, still on a silver standard, that was?
A disaster. Silver started flooding out of China to get the higher prices elsewhere. Banks failed, credit dried up, industry and farming collapsed. The U.S. policy effectively forced China off silver. In 1935, After 6 centuries, it was over.
Wow. The end of an era. And those beautiful silver artifacts, they mostly disappeared during all the turmoil.
Many did. Until decades later, A.J. Crosby Forbes, descendant of that opium trader Robert Bennett Forbes, sort of rediscovered Chinese export silver as a distinct craft.
He wrote the first book about it, realized pieces thought to be English were actually Chinese.
Exactly. Like finding lost art history. And now, that export silver is being appreciated again back in China, seen as a link to the past, inspiring modern designers.
It's amazing how things come full circle. Because today, China is once again the world's biggest importer of silver.
It is, but for totally different reasons now. Industry, electronics, mobile phones, electric cars, they all need silver.
And solar panels.
Huge amounts.
Yeah.
China makes something like 70 million solar panels a month. Each needs a thin film of silver. Their massive solar farms are consuming vast quantities of the world's silver supply.
China's economy, its manufacturing power, is immense again.
Already the biggest in terms of producing actual goods, bigger than the U.S. in that respect. Remember Napoleon's line? When China awakens, the world will tremble.
And that linguistic legacy you mentioned.
Still there. In Chinese, the character for money still basically means silver. Banks are silver shops, a constant echo of how central this one metal was for centuries, shaping not just China, but the entire world.
What an absolutely incredible story we've covered today. From that discovery high in the Andes to the Ming Dynasty's tax policy, lighting the fuse for global trade.
Fueling Spain's empire, China's golden age, then the tragedy of the Opium Wars, the century of humiliation.
And China's eventual tumultuous reemergence. It really shows silver wasn't just valuable metal.
No, it was this incredible global connector, a force that shaped history, linked continents, tied destinies together across hundreds of years.
So as China rises again today, becoming a dominant global economic force, you have to wonder, how much do those historical echoes of dependence, of trade imbalances, of asserting sovereignty, of humiliation, how much do they still influence China's thinking, its strategy, its interactions with the world? It's something to reflect on, isn't it? What lessons can we really draw from this long, complex saga of silver and global power?
Mad show, let's go, open up your mind and grow. Facts and stories, things you never know. Every episode, we light the glow. Step into the world of Mad Show. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow. New ideas begin to shine. Breaking limits, crossing lines. Every moment feels divine. In the world of Mad Show time. Turn it up, let the rhythm flow. Feel the beat, take control. Don't be shy, just let it go. This is where the magic grows. Tune in now, it's the Mad Show. Lights up bright and minds will glow. Every day we learn and grow. Come along and join the flow.